Hey, what's going on, guys? Whoops here for Cutback Gaming and crew. Today I'm going to be presenting my review for Shining Resonance Refrain, a Japanese role-playing game that has you swing musical instruments into people's faces while facing the eternal struggles of being a legendary dragon of bright lights. Let's jam ourselves right into the review.
Shining Resonance is a remaster of a game that came out in 2014 for the PS3. It has never sailed out to the West. In November 2017, it was originally announced for the PS4, but later down the line, they announced not only to a worldwide release on multiple platforms, but an English version for those in the West. Personally, I believe this was a great decision to make, since it's been 10 years since a Shining series game came out to the West. Having an English cast and the game on multiple consoles expands the fan base, and for that, I give Sega a round of applause.
Graphics are up next. I haven't seen enough of the original game from 2014, so I'm going to judge it based on how it is currently. At the time of this review, I played quite a few of anime-themed games here and there. While Shining Resonance Refrain isn't the best in the business, it isn't the worst either. Personally for me, it's above average, and I mean that in a very generous way. You'll notice some pixels like textures and odd things here and there, especially when models get too close. Character models will also pop in front of them out of nowhere when approaching certain sections of the map. In the long run though, none of these will ruin your playing experience. If you're a fan of JRPG games or anime-themed games, you won't be disappointed by this one.
Thinking it'd be nice to hear Yuma tell me I'm pretty.
I've told you before I will not tolerate disrespect towards his radiance. No more trouble, please. To bed with you.
Ow! Ow! Stop! Lady Kirika, that hurts! You don't have to pull. I'll come quietly. Please?
Our next topic is the music, sound, and voice. Now I'm going to save the best for last. The sound in this game is above average. Although I was enthralled by the game's story, there wasn't really anything about the various sounds that snapped my attention right away. It's very passable and it won't ruin your immersion. Music is up next. I find the soundtrack in this game to be a hit or miss. At times you have wonderful background music, and others, it's more elevator music. The very few times in this game that have great, amusingly sung music, though, are on the low end. What do I mean by this? There's a character named Kirika, who's a diva magica, basically a dragon whisperer through songs. Whenever she performs her singing, the volume is on the low end, and the singing doesn't really sound like it's coming from her. It has nothing to do with me playing the English version though, it just sounds like the singing's coming from a very close nearby radio. Last but not least, voice.
Carrot, surprise. Carrot? Ugh. I get it. Kirika hates carrots, huh?
Yep. She uses teleportation magic to move them to other people's plates. She's been doing it for ages.
And the prize for the pettiest use of magic goes to...
I have no idea what you're talking about. I will not stand for this slander. Base accusations. It's all a misunderstanding.
It's great in my honest opinion. I personally believe that they've nailed 90% of the English voice cast, something that's hard to do for most games that are brought over to the West. I say 90% because there are a few characters that will sound a bit off at first, but over time, you'll get used to them. Funny enough, you'll have some scenes of weird grunts, yelling, and crying that'll also bring you back to reality, but just for a second. It won't ruin your experience because that's common in most dub games. You play Yuma, a timid, shy main character from the early years of stereotypical main characters. What makes Yuma unique is that he harbors the soul of one of the most powerful dragons to roam this earth. You'll be joined by musical instrument weapon-wielding warriors known as Dragoneers on your journey throughout the game as you traverse the landscape fighting various creatures from goblins, wolves, tree turtles, to imperial soldiers and dragons. Single-player fans won't be disappointed by the story. I'm 70 plus hours in and the plot has yet to disappoint me. A cool feature that they do for the plot is to not only show our perspective, but also the villain's point of view. Showing both sides adds more depth to the story. Besides the main story, you'll also be entertained by the numerous side interactions. You'll have your companions, in typical RPG fashion. You'll also be able to date your companions. Doing so, you will be unlocking special traits you can use. I'll explain more in the upcoming gameplay section.
Now we are on to the butter of the game, the gameplay. Not much to be said here, sadly. It's very basic, which is not terrible. Sometimes basic is great, but here, you can tell they put more emphasis on the storytelling rather than the combat. The AI, most of the time, is mindless and just stands there, thus making the fights very easy. The only times where I've had difficulty were up against high-level enemies and ranged enemies also. Higher level, bigger numbers on you. I can accept that most of the time. What I can't forgive is the ranged enemies. Even if you're completely behind them, the auto-tracking still hits you, and they deal pretty moderate damage also. I make it a priority to eliminate them first. Each character is somewhat diverse. I say somewhat, but that's very loose. Having almost 4 healers and 4 ranged characters. Eventually, when they level up, you'll acquire more distinct movesets, separating them further apart from each other. But this should have been done right from the start. Another complaint I have is the different fighting traits that you can have. They're called tuning in-game. They're not very unique in a sense, and the main character Yuma's beginning one is way too user-friendly, granting the player auto-block. You basically gain Ultra Instinct. I won't go in depth on other mechanics, but I've got to talk about your bond diagram. Each character has certain traits to them, basically titles. This mechanic is barely explained in-game. You have to organize your characters in certain orders with certain titles to gain benefits in combat, but it's just, as you progress through the game, you'll notice characters getting more than +5 weird titles for everyday things like Infernal Chef, Carrot Hater. Best of all, you'll notice these benefits don't actually tell you what they do. You'll have to go out into combat and see for yourself. Even though you're still in combat, trying them out, you'll still don't know what they do most of the time. Shining Resonance Refrain is a fantastic game with flaws here and there. If you're a fan of JRPG games, you'll feel at home with this one, even if there are better games out in the market like the Tales series and Persona. Our final verdict for Shining Resonance Refrain is a 7 out of 10. The story and voice acting are very engaging and the highlights of this game. The combat and gameplay in general aren't worth talking about, but very passable. If you're looking for more action and in-depth gameplay, I'd pass on to another game. But if you're here for a great relaxing story with combat being a nice treat on the side, you're more than welcome to try out this game. Even better, because there's a demo out in case you're interested. Alright everyone, it's time for me to go. But thank you all very much for watching my game review. I used to do these very often in the past, but if this video does great and you guys like it, I'll do more. Have a wonderful day, and remember, shine bright like a dragon.